2026 isn't just another season on the calendar. It's a full-on rewrite. The sport is swapping big chunks of what makes an F1 car an F1 car. Brand new engine regulations, a bigger electrical component, and fresh aerodynamic rules that could completely reshuffle who's fast and who's not. That's exciting, but it's also the reason you've started seeing words like panic and doomsday get tossed around in the paddock. Right now, the situation feels a little like watching someone test ride a rocket and notice a creak you hope isn't structural. And the FIA suddenly doesn't sound as carefree as they once did. The heart of this story is simple. The FIA set out to give teams room to innovate while closing loopholes that hand one clever team a runaway advantage. It's a delicate balancing act. Rules can't be so prescriptive that every car looks identical on lap 1, but they can't be so loose that the first outfit to find a loophole runs away with the season. On top of that, the 2026 engine package flips the power balance toward electricity. That changes how the car behaves, how much drag you can afford on the straights, and how you think about delivering lap-long performance. The worry in the paddock is specific. If teams run out of electrical energy on the long straights, you don't get dramatic slipstreams and late-braking duels. You get drivers lifting off early to conserve power, which turns races into a strategy of battery survival rather than wheel-to-wheel bravery. And that's a problem everyone watching a summer Grand Prix wants to avoid. You've probably heard the headlines about drivers complaining after simulator runs, names like Max, Alex, Lance being raised as early critics, and that chatter has the FIA paying attention. Their message has been, we're watching the data, and the rules are still being refined. Fair enough, but here's the catch. It's far too late to redesign hardware. Engines, batteries, and their packaging have been in development for years. The kinds of headline fixes people imagine, bigger packs, different internal combustion sizes, aren't feasible at this point. So any corrective moves are likely to be software level or rules about how much electrical power can be used at once, subtle changes on paper intended to avoid those unnatural moments fans fear. That tells you two things. First, the FIA is not ignoring the problem, and second, the fixes will likely be tactical rather than revolutionary. For you as a fan, the stakes are obvious. Do you want a fresh technical era that truly invites close racing and surprises? Or do you want the danger of a rule change that makes on-track action less visceral? Drop one quick vote in the comments right now. Trust FIA or worried? And if you're new here, hit subscribe. We're chasing 1,000 subs, and this channel will be your best short briefing on everything 2026. Okay, that's the setup. Next, we'll dig into the technical fault lines, batteries, energy rates, and why. Monza and Spa keep getting mentioned as places that could expose the worst-case scenarios. When you strip away the headlines and start looking at the numbers, the real sticking point for 2026 is energy balance. The new regulations demand a much higher reliance on electrical power, with a smaller portion of output coming from the internal combustion engine. On paper, that looks futuristic and sustainable, and it plays well with manufacturers who want to showcase electric tech. But in the cockpit, it creates a serious headache. Drivers and engineers are already talking about what happens when you hit circuits like Monza or Spa, where the straights are long, the speeds are massive, and the electrical deployment might not last the whole stretch. Imagine sitting in the car at 200 miles an hour, only to feel the juice fade before you hit the braking zone. Instead of pushing flat out, you're suddenly lifting off early or downshifting to stretch your battery. That's not racing, that's energy. Babysitting, and the sport knows fans won't tolerate it. The FIA's hands are tied in one big way. The hardware is frozen. Years of design work mean the batteries, the engine blocks, and the hybrid systems are already locked in. Telling teams to double their battery size or swap in a bigger combustion engine isn't realistic at this stage. That's why the FIA is looking at subtler solutions. Things like tweaking how quickly electrical power can be deployed, adjusting the balance between combustion and hybrid use, or tightening software limits to smooth the energy curve over a lap. These aren't flashy fixes, but they could be the difference between drivers coasting in fuel-saving mode and drivers keeping their foot planted, fighting into every braking zone. You also can't ignore how this affects overtaking. Right now, Formula One leans heavily on DRS zones to enable passes, and fans already complain about the predictability. If energy management becomes another bottleneck, overtakes could be even rarer, confined to moments where the battery has a bit left in the tank. That's exactly the kind of unnatural racing the FIA keeps promising to avoid. The irony is that all of this is happening while the current regulations are producing some of the closest, most unpredictable racing we've seen in years. That contrast is why so many people in the paddock are raising their eyebrows. Here's where I want to hear from you. Do you think energy management will ruin the show? Drop a quick number in the comments. 1 for no, it won't matter, all the way up to 5 for yes, this is a disaster waiting to happen. And if you're into these deeper dives, make sure you've subscribed. The push to 1,000 subs is real, and every click helps us keep covering the big stories other channels miss. Now, the tech worries are only half the story. The other half comes from the people speaking up. The drivers who have tested the sims, the FIA officials trying to calm things down, and former insiders, like Dan Fallows, who think the whole rule change came too early. That's where the real drama is, and that's exactly where we're heading next. The loudest alarm bells about 2026 aren't coming from the FIA's offices. They're coming from the people actually sitting in the cockpit. Max Verstappen was one of the first to raise the flag after early simulator runs, warning that the new generation of cars could feel less like pure racing machines and more like complex puzzles, where energy management dominates the experience. He wasn't alone for long. Christian Horner backed him at the time, and more recently you've heard names like Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon, and Lance Stroll echoing the same unease. That kind of chorus doesn't happen by accident. If multiple drivers across different teams are pointing to the same issue, it usually means there's something real behind the complaints. The FIA, for its part, is trying to calm things down. Nicholas Tombazis, who's in charge of single-seater regulations, has been out front saying, "Relax, we know the issues, the rules aren't finished, and this is all under control." He insists the nightmare scenarios being painted, cars coasting halfway down straights, downshifting just to stretch battery life, won't be allowed to happen. According to him, the regulations are evolving, and the tweaks are already in the works to make sure drivers keep their foot planted when it matters most. In other words, the FIA isn't pretending the problems don't exist, but they're asking for trust at a time when trust is running thin. Then you've got voices from the technical world adding fuel to the fire. Dan Fallows, a respected aerodynamicist who's worked with Red Bull and Aston Martin, has basically said the new rules are premature. His argument is simple. The current regulations, introduced in 2022, are still producing incredible racing, with unpredictability up and down the grid. Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, even Aston Martin have all had flashes of brilliance. And just this season, Nico Hülkenberg grabbed a podium at Silverstone in a Haas, proof that even midfield teams can still dream. Fallows believes that if these rules were left in place for another couple of years, we'd see even more innovation and competition rather than hitting reset again so quickly. That's the tug of war you're seeing play out. Drivers cautioning about on-track consequences, FIA officials saying the doom talk is exaggerated, and former insiders warning that rushing into a new era could actually cut short one of the best racing cycles F1 has had in years. And for fans like you and me, it's hard not to feel caught in the middle. Who do you trust? The drivers who've felt the cars in the sims, or the governing body promising it'll all be fine once the final rules are locked in? I want you to weigh in on that. If you had to pick one side, where's your trust right now? Drop it in the comments, drivers or FIA. I'll be watching to see which way the fan base leans. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. Every new subscriber gets us closer to that first 1,000 milestone, and that's how we'll keep building this channel together. So now that you've heard the concerns and the counter-arguments, what's left is the big question. What exactly can the FIA still change, and how much difference will it actually make this late in the game? That's where we're going next, and it could be the make-or-break moment for 2026. So, here we are, just months away from the start of Formula One's biggest reset in years, and the truth is, the FIA doesn't have the luxury of a total rethink. The engines are locked in, the hardware is fixed, and the manufacturers have already poured countless millions into designing power units that fit the 2026 template. That means the real battlefield now is in the details: deployment rates, energy distribution rules, and the fine print that decides how aggressively a driver can attack a lap, without being forced into battery conservation mode. These are subtle dials, not sweeping changes, but they matter. One adjustment too far in the wrong direction, and suddenly the racing loses its spark. Get it right, and you have the chance to balance sustainability, innovation, and the kind of wheel-to-wheel battles fans demand. The FIA has been clear on one point. They won't allow what they call unnatural things. No lifting off mid-straight just to save energy, no bizarre downshifts when the car should be flat out, and no drivers coasting while waiting for their batteries to recharge. Tombazis himself has said the pedal will stay to the metal when it counts, and you can bet the FIA knows how disastrous it would be for the sport's image if races turned into slow-motion energy puzzles instead of gladiatorial battles. Still, the fact that these reassurances are even necessary tells you just how much doubt is swirling behind the scenes. And that's what makes 2026 such a knife-edge moment. On one side, you have the promise of a revolutionary era that could shake up the order, hand underdogs a shot at glory, and push forward cutting-edge technology that connects directly with road car innovation. On the other side, you've got the risk of overcomplication, of rules that arrive too soon, and of a sport that forgets the simple magic of flat-out racing. The current regulations have been delivering close, unpredictable battles, and part of you wonders, was there really a need to reset so quickly? That question is going to hang over the sport right up until the lights go out in 2026. And honestly, that's where you come in. Do you trust the FIA to get these tweaks right and deliver another era of thrilling Formula One? Or are you bracing yourself for disappointment, fearing the drivers might already be right about what's coming? Let me know down in the comments. Just a simple yes, I trust them, or no, I don't, will say a lot about how fans are feeling right now. And if you've made it this far into the video, I want you to join the push. Subscribe to the channel today and help us hit that first 1,000 subscriber milestone. Every click matters, and together we'll keep tracking the twists, leaks, and debates that shape the sport we love. This is going to be one of the most important turning points in Formula One history, and you'll want to be here when it all plays out. Until next time, drive safe and stay tuned, because the 2026 storm is only just beginning.